And for public work,
Okay, the meeting for the Parks and Recreation, we'll not have that if there is no quorum.
okay,
So it'll be all you.
thank you. Well, I'd like to welcome everybody, and we don't have any guests today. So, but,
Shane, did you want to kind of course, I guess we don't have a full quorum or a quorum of the plan, of the park committee, but I guess it was discussed at our, last special meeting of the board that President Maloney felt we might want to have a combination of parks and public works as we go forward, since there's items that are similar, that are shared by both committees, and trying to cut down on the number of meeting nights for people was the other thing. So just if everybody's wondering why we're trying to do this, that's kind of the short, brief explanation. I think at one time there was even some thought maybe of combining or reducing this to a single committee. But I guess for now, we're gonna run joint committee meetings until maybe there's some final, more final decision or some feedback to President Maloney or the trustees and how this, what the desire may be going forward. So anyway, just a short backdrop on that.
Yeah, I hope that we stick with just the combined. There's people that have been on the Park and Rec, and can put a lot of input in that Public Works at this point in time would not be aware of.
you're correct, absolutely right. I mean, there is a lot of history, and Roger is a good example of it, sitting in there. There's a lot of history, park and the village, and so, yes, I agree with you. But also,
We're gonna listen to the village of Weston or whatever. Yes, it's village. Yeah, Birch, yes.
Okay,
Just my input.
all right, sorry about that. We were.
all right. There was something else I was going to talk about it, but, roll call, please,
Hussein Ziami,
here.
Barb Ermeling, Thomas Hubbard is via Zoom. Tom?
Tom is not on Zoom.
Okay. Louis Serrano,
Here.
Roy Mumford.
Here.
And I will not be calling Parks Department.
Only other, would it be that if you did acknowledge who is here, would they get?
What time?
I would presume so, yeah.
So you may just.
Okay, so I will call Parks Department, Barb Ermeling. Nate Feeney is not here. Katrina Clark is not here. Roger Easter.
Here.
And Dino Carvino is not here.
You think they might show up at 4:30?
I know Dino's not gonna show up.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I was told that Feeney is gonna be at 4:40.
Okay.
If someone does join and you have a quorum, you could call the meeting to order at that point.
Fine. Public comment, there is no public comment. Item 5, approval of 4/11/22 Public Work and Utility Committee meeting. Minute, I'm sorry.
Motion to approve.
There a second?
Second.
Discussion? No discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I have it. Acknowledgement. Work product transmittal, okay, one-time leak adjustment.
Okay, that would be myself. We haven't had a leak adjustment for quite some time. When somebody has a ruptured pipe, and in this case, the basement was filled with water with the ruptured pipe, they are allowed a one-time leak adjustment, which on the very last page, I show you calculations of what their average water usage is, and then we take anything over and above that and give them that one-time leak adjustment. So in this case, their bill was $2,737.12. They got a leak adjustment of $2551.16, and they have a balance of $185.96, which they already sent me a check for. So that's documented, and it's one-time leak adjustment per owner. So this household will never be able to have a second leak adjustment.
Well, when I look at the billing wasn't for $185, it was 200 some dollars.
The balance after the credit was
Correct.
$185.96.
Okay.
What was the past month?
If you look, we have to average it for the last 3 quarters.
Okay,
So we took April's bill, July, October, January. That average is 56.29 in gallons that they only use. And this time they had 364,425 once the basement was filled.
ooh, big leak, huh?
Yeah. And that's just an acknowledgement to bring it to your attention.
Would you like to acknowledge that?
Yeah, I can make a motion to acknowledge.
Then a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I have it. Thank you. Item referred to committee by the village board. We don't have anything. Education presentation and report, none. Resolution ordinance, none. The staff report. Item 7, CIP update. Where is he?
Yeah, I'm
Participate.
virtual today. So I guess run through the highlights of where we're at. Still waiting to hear if we got anything for the Northwestern Avenue project. DOT made it sound like we should hear something today. I haven't received anything yet, but hopefully it's not 5 o'clock yet, so maybe we'll still get something. I guess we're looking at having the special assessment report or meeting May 24th at 6 p.m. Josh, I think that those people were here earlier thinking that this was a special assessment meeting.
Yes.
I think I indicated in my email to you guys, I got a little ahead of myself there without getting the resolution passed last month. So that is going to be moved to the 24th. And then I guess the Apache Lane project is progressing. I think they got all the water main in, or close to all the water main in by now. And we got one more, hopefully, last discussion on well 7 and 8, and then we can get that rolling here too. So unless you have any questions, that's just kind of where we're at. The Birch Street project should start sometime in June here and start rolling into the next series of projects.
So Apache Lane, what's the deadline for that project?
It's a June 30th completion.
Is he with the schedule ahead or behind?
They're probably ahead of schedule. I mean, they're close to having all the utilities done, and all they have left is the roadway, which being the middle of May, they shouldn't have any issue meeting that date.
Okay.
I
Anyone else have
think most of
questions?
Michael of the lift station, just to make sure everybody's clear on that, right?
That is Smith and Love? Is that the one?
Michael, just so everybody's clear, that's exclusive of the lift station at Trotzer Lane, right?
Oh, okay.
Correct. Yep, that's a separate project.
Who's the contractor for that?
It's also advanced construction, so it's the same contractor for both.
But they can't use the system unless the lift station is operating,
Correct. Yeah.
okay? Then what's the schedule for that?
That one has a September completion date or substantial completion. Hopefully they're hoping to get started yet this month on the lift station, so.
Okay. And who designed lift station? Packer Happy?
That was Clark Dietz.
Okay. Anybody else have a question? Yes, go ahead.
I guess my question is, when we go to the special assessment meeting, is there any merit to putting together an explanation of historically how the village has assessed people in these situations? Then I forget, is it a max 6 or 8 inch line size, so that they can understand? Maybe people will recognize via explanation that they're being treated exactly the same as people have been treated in the past for these types of assessments.
Yep. Yeah, I'll have a presentation to go over with that, with some of the changes we've made in the last few years with not assessing for the road and kind of deferring the water and sewer connections. I mean, I guess we're being a lot more friendly, I guess, with assessments now than we have been historically. So, and on Birch Street, we only have 8 inch main. There isn't any oversizing on that project.
Okay. Is that worth maybe preparing and sending out in advance of the meeting to potentially avoid people having that? I guess one of my thoughts was, if you explain to people up front, do you have less people that want to attend the meeting then because they now understand?
Yeah, and I have to send them the hearing notice and the preliminary assessments. So usually I put a cover letter to that and try to explain those items in there too. So.
Okay, good. I just feel like that information is really helpful. And if I was a homeowner and I got that and I see historically, this is what we've done, this is what we're doing now, I just would feel better about the process.
Sure. Okay.
Anything else? Anybody else? All right, Michael, that's it?
That's all I got. And then, Tom, did you just call in?
Yes, I'm online or on the phone.
Okay. So Teresa, if you want to make note that Tom called in.
Yep.
Okay, street operation, item 8.
Yeah, summer's here. Life went from, we're getting by and trying to get things done to all of a sudden it's getting crazy. So pretty much this week is yard waste pickup, brush and grass. We've got inlets to repair. We got a storm sewer project, little one down in Normandy that's not on the list that we're going to get started on once we get through this week. Pretty much our regular summer stuff is coming up. The street maintenance contract work has started a little earlier this year. As you can see, Norcon's out here working on Schofield Avenue. They just switched traffic to the outside lanes this morning. So they're sawing, they've got about 40 patches, joint repairs to do there. I talked to the other awarded street maintenance contract people today. The crack sealing contract, he's looking at coming in mid-June. The chip sealing, they're looking at possibly the 3rd week in June, 2nd to 3rd. Farner with the GSB 88, they're looking at starting next week on that. And so things are moving right along. And I did talk to American Asphalt today as far as they're going to be doing Ross Avenue, the milling and paving from Mesker to the bridge. And they're looking at also in June, mid-June, beginning of June, starting with that and get that project done.
All these people are going to start working. How many streets we're going to have closed?
How many what?
How many streets is going to be closed?
Everything is pretty much, the chip sealing, is a one-day process, pretty much sweep the streets and go. The GSB 88, that's basically a sealer, like you saw last year out on Bobble and that neck of the woods. That's the same thing. American Asphalt, talking with them today, they were hoping to mill and pave right behind the milling. It's probably not going to work out. So they're going to mill it and they're going to have to run them on gravel for a few days, but he wants to shape a lane and get it paved with binder right away and switch traffic onto that. So They know in the contract that they've got to keep that road open and keep access to people.
So
So
they're gonna have 2 lane open, or 1 lane open and 1 lane closed, and then switch around?
they're going to be using flag people to make it happen. That's what they're going to have to do. So when they're out there working during the day, they're going to be using flag people, and they're going to run them to Fuller over and then cut across to Mesker. There's a detour set up for that. So as long as the weather holds, it should go pretty well for them realistically. So, and the only thing that's going to come a little later, RC pavers with the asphalt overlays, they were talking mid-July. So we've got a lot of just routine maintenance work we're trying to get done within the village with the street crew. Our sweeping, we pretty much got everything once over. Got all our annual spring sweeping is done. So now it's a matter of asphalt work and storm sewer work and inlets and whatever else comes up along the way. We're going to be getting a brand new milling head for our skid steer. We purchased that and it's supposed to be coming in. They had said 4 to 6 weeks here. It looks like possibly next week it'll show up. So once we get that and get some of this other work out of the way, we want to be putting that to work in some of these areas where we have bad spots. We'll mill those out and patch them back in with hot mix and hopefully make more of a permanent repair than cold mix.
So let's get back to Ross Avenue. How many days that project gonna take?
How many days?
Yes.
I would think 5 days at the most. You know, not, if it rains, the problem is that you're inside of a bathtub because they're milling, they're leaving the outside bike lanes. So if it's wet, they'll have to pump it, which isn't a big deal, you know, so if they mill, I would think they'll mill that probably in a long day. They'll be shaping, I gotta believe, as soon as they can right behind them and trying to get binder on it. And I would think they'd take the westbound lane because that's the low lane. I would think that's what they're gonna do.
Because they finished the Camp Phillips in 3 days, I believe.
The county.
Correct.
Yeah, that was just a mill overlay there on concrete. So, yeah, you know, we'll see how it goes. I'm thinking 5 at the most.
Okay.
As long as it doesn't rain a lot in between.
You're gonna put the sign on there, the road's gonna be under construction from this date to this date, so people know what they're coming?
Yeah, we can get a message board and put it out there again too.
I think so, yeah.
There's no good detour route. So if
Yep.
it was worded in the contract that it's gotta be done under traffic and they need to be able to handle it with flag people, so they know. I'm sure they'll run longer hours, whatever it takes to try and get that thing buttoned up. They're struggling a little bit too with help. I know I've been talking with them some and they're like everybody else in this world these days, trying to find people and crews and, you know, it's tough, but Chris Kirshner is the person I'm dealing with from American and we have a pretty good relationship. I'm thinking that they're gonna hit her.
All right. Any
One-
question?
One last thing. I talked to Farner Asphalt Sealers. They're gonna come out. We're gonna meet and look at the bridge. I know there were concerns about the epoxy. That was part of the deal. We are holding money on them right now yet.
How much?
I'm sorry, I can't remember. There's too much in my brain, Shane.
Well, I want to see if it's worth it to him to do something, or if it's a little bit, and
Oh, no, no,
I
no.
don't care.
No, they're not gonna walk away from this one.
Yep,
They want more of our work, so they won't walk away from this.
okay.
That's all I got. Questions?
Question?
One thing I just want to say, I know it necessarily wasn't our project, but the Camp Phillips by Schofield Ave there, I'm very thankful at how fast that went. I don't know what we do when these projects come up to prepare for the detours that are going to be happening and stuff, but the traffic on East Jelinek was insane for those couple days.
Yep.
And I'm assuming somebody must have called because I saw the speed trailer got out there probably within a day or something, which I'm sure was helpful a little bit, but that road definitely gets pretty fast. So as we look forward at some of these projects, if we can try to anticipate some of the detours that aren't official detours, but we know people are gonna take, just to try to predict for that.
We discussed it with them and they use State Highway 29 as a detour.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, there was a lot of confusion. I mean, they're kind of between a rock and a hard place too. Thankfully PD put the speed trailer out there and I know it was upsetting to some of the residents, but even the truck traffic, you can't stop them. I was following semis and it said no trucks and they put a message board out and unless how are you gonna stop it?
Yeah.
I think they had the message at least a week ahead of the time. we're gonna do this project, and also they said how many days it's gonna take them to do it.
They had barricades up that said the road was gonna be closed.
Right, right, yeah, you're right.
That's a bad place. Yeah, I mean, just the sheer volume of traffic that runs that road, when you close it down tight.
I think
Last time they did it,
1,000,
they did it under traffic, but
right. Okay,
thank you.
thank you. Utility operation update?
Yeah, like Dan said, things are starting to pick up. Operators handled a few hundred diggers tickets last month and they keep coming in. Lots every day. Work orders kind of similar. We're having a lot more construction going on, a lot of meter deliveries, and hopefully we can keep up with our inventory that we don't get behind on any of the new developments that are popping up. Our SCADA system's still working on. Hopefully we can get something progressing here as part of our well 7-8 construction. Some of our water side of things, just a lot of miscellaneous well upgrades and repairs happened last month. We're able to start our valve exercising. We had kind of held off on that with some of our PFAS issues with our wells being down, which I'll touch on PFAS right after this report. On sewer, similar, we had a few generator repairs, upgrades. We were able to finish our jetting and televising of our Camp Phillips and Shorey stretch for our sewer lining project that's going to be put together by my tech that will get out to bid. I got to review some of that televising, get that over to them here hopefully this week. The Birch Street site, we also televised that. We had a number of services going into that property, so we televised and abandoned a few of those. That's why it was closed, and then we opened it and closed it again so we could get some of those services going into that property abandoned. Some of the miscellaneous activities, PFAS I will touch on here, like I said, in a minute. We participated in our CPR training. One of our operators and myself attended a little leadership and management training seminar. Michael brushed up on most of our contract work. They did pressure test the water main on Apache up past Kiowa. So they should have one more stretch and then that water main should be ready to roll. Hope to get out our hydrant painting RFP here this week. And I'm gonna touch base with Visi Sewer. They were awarded our manhole rehab project last year that they couldn't get to. They said we were on their schedule for May and June, and it's getting to be close to middle of May, so I need to get a schedule from them. And like I said, our sewer lining project is gonna be designed by my tech, so hopefully we get that over to them soon. Customers added, just some of my tables I put together for our customers added, our water pumped for the last few months, see how we're trending. You'll see some of the numbers have a little bit of a deviation probably from the norm due to our wells 3 and 4 needing to be shut down for a stretch there due to our PFAS results. And then just wrapped it up with our wastewater flows for the last handful of months, lift station hours, and some of our aquahawk usage.
Anything else?
If there's no questions, I guess I can roll into our PFAS update.
Question? Go ahead.
So I guess I'm not sure. I guess I'll start at the beginning. So we had PFAS results back, our first round of sampling that came back showed our wells 3 and 4 that come to our treatment plant were high. Well, one was high on our combined PFAS numbers and both were high on the hazard index of 1. So per the DNR, we had shut those wells down. We then resampled April 11th. Those results came back with all of our wells well below the recommended 20 parts per trillion standard and below our 1 hazard index. So we discussed with the DNR what to do next. They felt we did not pump them long enough to collect the sample at that time and on an April 11th sample. So after discussion, we fired up wells 3 and 4 again, and they had been running for a couple weeks. When we took our most recent sample event that, what would that have been? May 5th? Is that what it was? Yeah, so we took additional samples last week that are in the state lab. So I guess depending on what those samples come back, I guess the DNR's feeling is we're either gonna kind of utilize that first round of sampling that showed 3 and 4 are high. But if it comes back showing that, you know, that everything's in line, I guess we'll have to make some decisions on how to move forward. So some of our short-term options, we have short-term solution to fire up well 4, you know, should the samples come back bad. We have a blending option that we're working on with AECom that they found could be favorable, where we could take some of our distribution water, reroute it through a main that goes to the back of the treatment plant, and then we could fire up well 4, mix those. We could get well 4 below the 20 parts per trillion standard and the hazard index. We pinpointed well 4 just because the first round of samples for well 3, it was kind of off the charts from what we were anticipating. So I guess hopefully by the next meeting, we'll have our sample data back and we'll kind of have a better idea of which way we're going, if we're gonna have to move forward with some of the short-term solutions. Yes.
What is just roughly, what is the cost of testing?
It's not cheap. I think it was about $4,000 for our first round. What was it?
How many sample?
What's that?
How many sample first round?
So our first one, we actually did 7 samples our first round, where we wanted to sample each well and the combined 3 and 4 out of the treatment plant, just to see what the blending would have been for that. The second round, the DNR really only wanted to see what the entry points were. So we actually have 6 entry points, because 3 and 4 come together and then they go into the distribution system out of the treatment plant at 1 entry point. So we convinced them that it was probably a better idea to sample each well, since we want to know what 3 and 4 are. We don't want to know what 3 and 4 are combined. So we want to know if 3 is really bad and 4 is not so bad, which is kind of what we saw in the first round of sampling. We wanted to make sure this last round, we got 3 and 4. So we did not actually sample our carry well. They sent us 6 kits, and we did not sample our carry well. That one was, the first 2 rounds are well 1, 2, 5, and 6. Or I should say 1, 2, 5, and 6 were all pretty comparable from the first round to the second round. So, I mean, that's why the DNR would kind of wanted to see why 3 and 4 was such a change. So I guess we'll wait and see, and fingers crossed that they come back as the second round of sampling, and then we can, I guess, wait and see what our future holds for quarterly sampling, or I guess it's kind of up in the air, not really sure what.
That's what I was kind of curious.
Yeah.
I just thought to myself, wonderful, they came back without the PFAS, but then by the same logic, I said, well, you retest the other wells because maybe they passed the first time and they won't the second.
Right. And I think
$550 per sample for that 7 sample. And then when there is a sample come out like that, is a sampling procedure or is it a lab problem? Because
and each of them they have field blanks that so as we take the samples, there's actually one that's PFAS-free water.
Yeah.
Where you take that cap off, you pour it into a container. So that's supposed to be 0 PFAS. So
Right.
that's supposed to be kind of your check. So, yeah, I mean, maybe the first round was a sampling error. So, we'll find out. But, we still want to see some guidance as to, how this is going to progress in the future. Is it, we take a quarterly sample, we're good. Oh, now this next quarter, we're bad. So kind of want to see how we're going to be able to, if it's going to have to be kind of a hurry up and wait or jumping to shut down wells, or we just need a little more guidance once we get.
So when are we gonna get this result back?
I don't know.
I don't think there's any way of knowing.
Yeah.
This is now within the realm of the DNR
Yeah, so
sampling event that they were trying to get every utility in the
Yep.
state to participate in, and they're paying for the round that came back. I should say, the first round that we conducted was strictly voluntary in our cost.
Yep.
We were tracking that cost.
Yep.
The second time we sampled again, is that DNR funded or
No.
was that?
So-
That's our nickel again.
Yes, so there's two sample methods as well. There's an EPA 537.1 method that we collected on our first round. That leaves out a few PFAS contaminants. So to kind of fill in the gaps, the second round was a Wisconsin 33, which samples and it analyzes for a few more contaminants on that, which didn't really sway our numbers one way or another. So then, like Keith had mentioned, there was a DNR funded program where you could volunteer to be part of that. They would pay for. So we volunteered to do it. Our rounds 1 and 2 were voluntary, and then we joined into the DNR funded one, which is again the EPA 537.1 method. So. I guess we'll see. I don't know if we have to do another one, if they would then want us to do a Wisconsin 33 method. I think they're pretty comfortable with some of the numbers we have with the missing contaminants that are picked up in the Wisconsin 33. Those all came back pretty insignificant. It's, the main ones that they were looking for are the PFOA and the PFOS, which is what the EPA is trying to get this MCL set, which I don't know if we want to go into the history of
Yeah, so
what's been voted on and
this whole
So you
effort to
did
get
what, 2 rounds?
utilities.
Excuse me, kid. You did 2 round sampling?
we've done 3 rounds. We have results for the first 2. Number 3 is in the lab as of Friday morning.
Well, that should tell this story. That's
Right, we sampled Thursday, they arrived Friday morning, so they said they're backed up a little bit, so it was kind of a hurry. With the results we got, they moved us up the list. So I wanted to have I was hoping to maybe get some Northern Lakes samples that we could have taken at the same time in conjunction with this, just to have a little confirmation what we sent down to the state lab and what we sent to Crandon, but it was a quick turnaround that we didn't have them, so we had to sample within a certain window, and when I opened them, and it said we had to sample by May 6th, and it was, I think, May 3rd, so we didn't have a chance to get the bottles in, so hopefully in the next week or 2, we can get our results back and see which way we go.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, in the meantime, I guess just philosophically, I really don't agree with the way this whole thing is being conducted. So there is no federal safe drinking water standard for PFAS. There's a recommended level of 70 parts per trillion. And if you were to ask, we're a member of what's called the MEG, Municipal Environmental Group Water, which, kind of tracks legislation going on for water utility, that affects water utilities in the state. The attorney for MEG kind of clarified this for me last week or week before. Because the Natural Resources Board hearing back in February, the Natural Resources Board did not accept the 20 parts per trillion level that was recommended by DNR. They said, we're going to go along with the 70 parts per trillion. And as long as that is not rejected or overturned by the legislature, that will be the Wisconsin standard for drinking water in the state. Now we're all out here trying to react to this 20 parts per trillion, which is a Department of Health standard recommendation. So they're saying that if we exceed 20 parts per trillion, we are to issue a health advisory notice to all of our customers. That's what the village of Rothschild did. That's what the city of Wausau has done. And I know Wausau is still looking at how they can make modifications to their treatment facility, anticipating that there is gonna be a standard lower of 20 parts per trillion or lower potentially. We don't, trouble is, we don't know what the standard's gonna be in Wisconsin. They could even make it lower. This is a very frustrating thing on the operations side, as you can imagine. And let alone how confusing it may be to the customers. So I think our best bet short term would be to go with the blending. We are in the process of having wells 7 and 8 developed. And assuming those will be lower than 20 parts per trillion, then we look at the long-term solution at well 3 and 4, 4 I guess being the one that we were targeting. We actually do have a bid that was opened on temporary treatment for well 4 that was going to be a portable treatment system brought in here to, for $100,000, exclusive of the disposal of the spent ion exchange material. I guess we don't necessarily know what that number was going to be for disposal, but that's another issue when we get involved in this, if we ever do, that, the disposal of the ion exchange or whatever treatment system is used, if it's granular activated carbon, that material becomes a hazardous waste when it's all said and done. So there's only certain places that can be taken. So again, just updating everybody on where we are. I know we had a discussion about this last time. Do we really do anything when we're, in the absence of a standard that's necessarily enforceable?
Can I?
And Michael?
This is Tom.
Okay.
Yep, and I totally agree. I've said this from the start. You're chasing a number. We don't know what it is yet. And the blending, I think, is the best option. You run to a short-term treatment. The media is $90,000, I think it said. And like you said, the disposal. And if we're trying to chase a number that we don't have to get to, I just don't. Like I said, I just want to say I totally agree with the blending at this point. If we need to, after the next round, we might not even have to.
Only problem with it is risky, that's all.
What's risky?
But if we don't do anything,
Well, I'm not saying the blending. I'm just saying I don't think a person should go out and put the short-term solution in if all of a sudden we find out we don't need it and we're, a couple $100,000 that we might not need. I don't mind the idea that figuring out what type of media we need, for that short term, if we need to do that.
Could I just ask you, so you said that we had to, I want to make sure I understood this right, the DNR required us to shut down 3 and 4?
So it's a DHS health. So they have the hazard index of 1. And if you are above that 1, you are, like Keith mentioned, you're supposed to put out a health advisory that if you're putting this water into the distribution system, that you could be consuming contaminated water. So I guess as a sister department to the DNR is that the DNR is kind of supporting that DHS hazard index, where if we were putting out this water, if we didn't shut anything down, then we would have to put out a letter stating that our customers are consuming contaminated water.
So we shut down the wells more as
Right, and we were fortunate that, when on our main distribution system, we have, wells 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6. With 3 and 4 down, we were still able to provide, we had enough capacity to provide everything. Now, this is coming, we're getting now that the weather's kind of getting nice, people are gonna be out there mowing and sprinkling, and so if our results come back where we need to do something with, say, 3 and 4, or get 4 up and blended, that's gonna have to be happening, otherwise we'll probably have to put sprinkle bans, and we just won't have the capacity, or we fire them up and send out a letter, I guess.
or you send a letter out, people, they're not gonna drink the water and they're gonna say, provide us water. That's what they did in the city of Wausau.
Well, but the Village of Rothschild did not.
Right.
So again, we're all flapping in the wind, in my opinion. And I think there's the public relations aspect, and then there's the other technical aspect of it. And I guess it's a matter of which one we think we should be reacting to, I suppose.
I think we should wait until we get the test result back.
Yeah.
And we can have a more meaningful discussion.
Yep, and we do have information on our website. We have a PFAS page where we post all our results and all our press releases and little links to as much PFAS info as you want to take in. You can read all day and night if you want.
Could you make a chart, round 1, round 2, round 3?
Yep.
And also with the wells number and everything else in there?
We have that posted for our round 1 with what contaminants were identified and sampled for and analyzed and what. So our round 2 results table looks a little different because that was the Wisconsin 33 where they had a few more contaminants analyzed on that round. So then this next round will look more like the round 1 samples where we had the 537.1 method completed.
Does it make any, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, does it make any difference as to time of year that you sample? Like, does spring runoff influence testing at well sites?
It could, but I mean, if we're dealing in, parts per trillion size things, it could. I guess I'm not sure exactly how our groundwater, we have some general groundwater mapping of how it flows.
Or rates of usage would be another one of my
Yeah,
high-end, you know what I mean? In other words, are we getting a good result that really isn't a good result because of the time of year or because of the amount of flow that it's happening? I don't know, I just am curious about when you see irregularities in testing, then I start wondering about.
well, and I think that was kind of the DNR's.
Questions.
That was kind of the DNR's worry is that, well, they didn't want to take, round 2 as gospel because, we ran it, I think it was half hour, 45 minutes. We ran each of the wells long enough to kind of displace what was in the column of that well and a little extra. And, DNR's stance was maybe with them being down, the PFAS floated which way they went. And if we have it up and running for a few more weeks, maybe it's pulling that in with that.
That's why I was curious about the cost of testing, because when you start to get yes, no.
Right.
Now you come back, now you start questioning, how many times do you need on that scatter, of the results before you can really make a determination?
You got the answer, you'd be the man to ask.
Okay, anything else?
No, I'll just say I really appreciate that input from you because I think perception is the biggest part of this and making sure that we're just transparent with the customers that, hey, this is here, this is what we're required to do, this is what we think is best right now, and we'll continue to find that middle ground or whatever as we go, and we'll see what the numbers come back.
Yeah, and we want to be as proactive as we can, but when our round 2 came back and everything was great, it was kind of like, well, now we need to react a little differently because we had some wheels in motion one way and it was a little different than what we anticipated at the time. So.
Okay, anything else?
I guess if I could just add a quick little bit, we did get the modeling results for the blending solution, and those did come back favorable. So if we go that route, it looks like we'd be able to supply the system and keep up with demand. And I guess part of me says we should make that pipe connection anyways, so we can, at the very minimum, flush the line from the Mesker well to the treatment plant, which I know has been a goal of our utility operators for a while. Since Mesker does traditionally have a higher iron content, there's not been a good way to flush the line that goes from the well to the treatment plant, which is about a quarter mile. So just being able to get system pressure on that line and flushing it would be, I think, worthwhile. So.
All right, thank you, Michael.
Yep.
Question for Michael? All right, item 10, park update.
So, as you can imagine, I didn't have a report necessarily like a new one in the packet.
But as you can imagine, the last 2 weeks, there's been a lot of work taking place at the pool. So 2 weeks ago, the pool contractor came in and due to some of a large portion of the interior of the pool caulking pulling from the sides, from the pool surfacing that they installed last spring and caulked it. They came in and completely removed all the caulk and installed new. They also were in along with Lucero, who was their plaster contractor. They came in and polished any of the rough areas from when they installed the surface. Last spring was a mad rush. I mean, we deferred filling the pool by about 5 days, just due to them working around the weather and trying to get the new plaster installed. So between some of the weather that they plastered in and going through that, they had some work they had to make repairs on. And we also had Norcon in last week. They redid the caulking between the coping stones around the perimeter of the deck, replaced 3 cracked coping stones, and then did some minor other cosmetic repairs. Also, Fisher Brothers Construction was the company that was hired to redo the play structure. They were in last week and about 90% of the play structure has been reinstalled. They have some small details like the paneling around the outside, a little bit of plumbing, and then installing some additional fasteners, and then that should be all completed. We also have a plumb.
That was the one they took it to their office, right?
Yep, they disassembled the entire thing, took it over the winter, restored it, so they, besides sandblasting all the piping, they sandblast it, remove on the interior and exterior, then they re-galvanize the pipes, and then they paint them. So they built a new roof structure for it, because the previous roof structure is plastic, molded plastic. They don't restore very well. Usually they restore them and then they blow apart right away anyways. So they custom built a stainless steel roof structure for it. They also installed new bollards at the bottom of the slide. They covered the entire deck surface and steps with light floor. So it's a padded surface. Codes have changed as far as play structures since ours was installed in '99. Not that we have to meet the new code, but the new codes require that they have a soft padding on the, for the steps and for the platforms. So the majority of that was completed. And then we had a plumber in for a leak in the concession stand. The pool or the concession floor contractor is scheduled to come in tomorrow morning and work on the pool or the concession floor. Also have a pretty major water leak on our water heater for the domestic water heater.
Is that the new one?
It's 3 years old.
Right?
3 years old. So what it came down to, you couldn't see the leak because it was between the tank and the exterior of the tank. So you have an awful insulation. You couldn't see it. So we didn't know if it was a cracked tank or what it was. It's a high grade water heater, it's a stainless steel tank. Found out it was leaking from the circulation pump on the water heater on the top. So there's a circulation pump that circulates the water whenever it's full and running. And we thought it was just the flange between the pump and the tank. Ended up being that the shaft seal actually was destroyed. I'm assuming it has to do with some of the corrosive contents of our water, of our domestic water, because it had actually eaten some of the brass pieces that retain the pump shaft seal. So I actually ordered 2 pump shaft seal kits. I installed a new pump shaft seal on Friday, fired it up, everything's working fine. But due to the corrosion pitting on the pump shaft, and the fact that the seal was so brittle, I ordered a backup circulation pump too. After I installed the seal and made sure everything was running, then I'm like, well, we better get another pump on hand. Because it's just, it's not a major issue, but it was probably leaking last year. We didn't notice it. So then this year it sat all winter dry. And then as soon as we turned it on, the pump wasn't turning because the seal had actually locked itself up.
Is that warranty work or
Well, it's a wear item because it is a mechanical seal. Of course, if it was a tank, it would have been covered, but fortunately it wasn't a tank because we wouldn't have been able to get one until probably September or October, and we would have had no hot water for the aquatic center. So it's just domestic water heater. It's not the pool boilers. Those, unfortunately, we can't fire up till we actually fill the pool and have pool water in the system. So there's a lot of work going on up there. There's a bunch of electrical parts out here that Scott will be installing pin connectors on all of our motors. So, I mean, that's pretty much consuming our time up until today, which we just opened the restrooms in all the parks this last week, and we were hit with a rash of vandalism over the weekend. So we had at least 3 sites get graffitied. We have right now, Bachmueller's locked up due to the graffiti on the inside. Kelly Land was vandalized on the outside of the restroom. Oak River Trail was graffitied. And then we had somebody decide to pretty well plug and toilet at Kennedy Park, where our toilet snake all the way in is still not hitting the clog, but the rest of the toilet's flushed, so we know it's just beyond the toilet. So we have a contractor coming in tomorrow to take care of that. And right now we have Kennedy locked up, Sandale's locked up due to an issue there too, and then Mockmiller's locked up. Mockmiller's locked up basically because the graffiti is so horrible. We have pre-T-ball out there tonight, 4-year-old kids and parents, and we can't have somebody walking in there. So our options, when we found it, was to, we don't want to use graffiti remover because it's on a painted surface, because we'll just destroy the paint that's underneath it, and then it'll be a rough surface that we have to paint. So we're just gonna paint over it tomorrow, but the paint wouldn't have been dry by the time they were there tonight, so we're gonna paint it tomorrow. Plus the police department wants to do some additional documentation, and we're supposed to meet with them tomorrow at 10. All the incidents have been reported to the police department, and we did get a few calls today. Dan took the call. I got an email, something on social media. I got a couple emails regarding it. So people were out this weekend. They saw the damage. So that unfortunately defers us from doing other work. So that's about the update on that. We have one piece of equipment that's down. It's our main mower, which we've been having troubles with it. We were out without it for 5-6 weeks last year. Developed a shaft seal or a hydraulic pump seal leak over winter. They came and picked it up earlier this year. The seal finally arrived last week, and we expect it to be back next week before we actually start our regular mowing. And then our seasonal employees will be starting the week of the 23rd.
So how much was those pump?
How much was the pump?
The
I don't
pump
know.
for the boiler, yeah.
I don't know the cost on the recirculation pump yet. I contacted him on Friday. He just texted me back or sent me a message back last night stating he got my message. So I don't get a price on it yet.
So you already installed it, right?
No,
You got the pump?
I put a pump shaft seal in the old pump and installed that. And then ordered a backup pump to have on hand. It's a small little 0.75 horsepower electric motor. It's with a plastic impeller, just circulates whatever's within the water heater. So.
Before I forget, I just wanted to say kudos to the staff because I thought they did a great job on the Oak River Trail. I don't know if that was done last spring or is that winter? Okay.
Yeah, Public Works staff did.
I think the boulders are well placed. I think that will work well. And then in regards to because we're supposed to decide on another public bathroom later tonight. Is there been any discussion with the police department implementing a sting operation? Because generally these things are limited to a small number of people, and once they find out that they're getting arrested and prosecuted and handcuffed and hauled away, is there any ability to go after that with camera technology?
It's possible, you know, unfortunately, what we've noticed in the past is that you can place a trail camera in one area, but they don't necessarily come back to that same area after they hit that area. You know, so like, you could put one by the bathroom because it got hit. We had lots of problems with bathrooms last year, so they ripped off all the soap dispensers and paper towel dispensers last year in multiple parks. They did it all the same night. So you place a camera at the restroom and then they'll go rip the shingles off the shelter. You know, so unfortunately, you can't cover all the areas where they can do the damage. There are some options out there, you know, to try to deter them. But the thing was like Kellyland, so actually the light that's within the park is right next to the bathroom and the shelter, wasn't working. WPS repaired it last Friday, and this was pre them doing the damage. So it didn't matter that it was a lighted area to them. So, I mean, it's something we could talk about. I mean, we've had issues. We have an 11 camera system at the pool and it doesn't determine them there either. Because most of the time they do it at night and your cameras unfortunately are not good enough to pick up distances in the dark.
When's the last time you looked at cameras?
Pretty much every year at the pool.
Okay.
But we probably could have like triple the amount of cameras just because of that, the distance that it has to cover at night. You know, because the pool's a big area and they're all located on the perimeter, like on the light poles.
Yes.
You need to go to a sporting goods show, not a municipal show. The cameras are really good. Could we contact Marathon County Sheriff's Department and see if they could, do they still do that on TV where they, the Crime Stopper stuff?
They do.
You know what I mean? The more people that know about it, because there's, you know, newspapers are kind of non-existent anymore. If they would put something on there and maybe get somebody that would spill the beans a little bit or offer a reward for the little, I don't want to say little buggers, but I'm assuming they were old enough to know better.
And with today's advancements, I mean, cameras are cellular. You can do them cellular. You don't need wires. You don't need phone lines. You don't need all the stuff. Ethernet cables like you did in the past. You know, everybody's got 10 trail cams out there that are connected directly to the phone and they just came out with cell service on them. So there are some better options than what we looked at them in the past, for sure.
And I think the suggestion of a reward is a very good one. I mean, compared to, I don't know what it costs us every time they vandalize, but.
Well, we just spent $400 in paint, so.
Yeah, there you go.
Cover up that, and then the labor alone, I mean, we'll exceed a couple $1,000s in damage just from what happened over the weekend.
Somebody might turn somebody in for the cash.
Yeah, there's a couple names. There's a couple names left. We don't assume it's the people that did it, but the names are a couple people in the, that we are aware of, we know them actually, so. So there may be some ties where, you know, kids talk. We have some good police officers in the school system that know these kids too, so.
Okay.
Well, we did have one other incident you might find happened over the weekend. So there was a, you know, opening day kickoff for baseball at Kennedy Park on Saturday. There was 11 baseball games. Just after 12:30 in the afternoon, some kid decides to go out on his dirt bike and tear around on the soccer field and the rugby field at Kennedy Park in the middle of the day.
Really? And
Yeah.
nobody reported?
Oh, somebody reported it just before I reported it. I left there about 12:30 on Saturday and it happened right after I left. So literally I had people calling me right away and I called the police right away and they're like, oh, we just received another call. So it sounds like they did catch the individual and
Okay.
the police officer called me like almost immediately after I called them.
Yeah.
And so they were able to get over there right away and but Kennedy Park has been extremely busy compared to past years.
So was he youth guy or he was older?
I'm not sure. I didn't get any information from the police today.
Yeah, because if it's youth, they let them go. They don't do nothing to them, but.
But we have about 30 to 40 people pretty much there every day, hanging out in the skate park parking lot, and they range anywhere from 10 years old to 40 years old.
they're doing drugs right in front of everybody, staff, other people at the park. I mean, it's not the first time it's happens all the time, but I mean, the police are there all the time. So.
Anybody else have a question? Oh, we can't do nothing over it, right? So,
I would just like to, I would just like to make a motion to, maybe the Public Works, if someone else would join in, and we suggest to the village board that they implement a reward program or consider implementing a reward program.
okay,
Yeah,
it's not on the agenda, but,
no, we can just maybe recommend.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if we could just make a recommendation.
yes. we can make a recommendation. Would you have them on the agenda for board meeting?
We could say, yeah, you could probably put in the report or on new business item, sure.
Okay,
It just seems such a shame to be considering another public restroom on a night when we're discussing how.
It makes us rethink that whole situation, huh?
And there are a lot of programs out there, reward programs, tip programs like Crime Stoppers, things like that, which can be available. The big thing is just using them, putting it out there in the public. I mean, you know, just speaking from my experience with WASA, it's amazing what you'll put out on social media and the amount of tips you'll get because people are so frustrated with seeing the way that their tax money is being wasted because things are being damaged and destroyed, especially families who enjoy those parks. So it's good to put that information out there and be like, this is what we're dealing with, and get people talking, because especially kids like to talk, and they'll talk in the schools, and the SROs eventually hear about it, so.
are you suggesting, are you suggesting putting it in the newsletter?
I'm not necessarily saying in the newsletter, I'm just saying, I know that I mean, you could, but I'm just saying the tool of social media and Crime Stoppers is great for just getting it out there in the public's eye, because it's everywhere. Like we deal with it in the city, obviously, as well. And sometimes when we have trouble with things, we just put it out there and get a lot of people talking about it. So that's always a tool.
You should write it down.
And obviously
section.
Everest Metro can look into some parts.
You should write it down on your section in the newsletter.
Sure, I know we'd have other ways to reach people more quickly, like social media or.
Yeah.
That was just gonna be my comment, is you gotta do it when it's happening, not 3 months later.
While it's hot.
Yeah.
I kind of chuckle sometimes when they have something where, did this happen back in, and I'm going, who's gonna remember what happened back in?
And Everest Metro has a great audience on their Facebook page, so.
And usually this doesn't start till after school gets up.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a little earlier than normal.
Has to fix it that week.
Yeah.
I lost front
No.
decorations one year after the school. Several years later, the neighbor looked and she said, oh, it looks like that could belong for you.
Yeah. All right. Go to item 11, policy discussion and recommendation, Birch Street construction service proposal. Michael?
Yeah, so I guess this is, the proposal from Becker Hoppy to perform the construction oversight services for the Birch Street reconstruction project. It's a not to exceed amount of $184,510 based on actual time and material spent on the job. Ends up being about 8.8% of the total construction cost. So I guess it's 10% is usually the max of what I consider the range. So I guess if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'd recommend approval of the proposal from Becker Hoppy.
Michael, I just have one question. Do we normally not bid this portion of the contract in conjunction with the design? And is there a reason we don't bid them at the same time?
we've done it both ways. I guess when we do it right away, there tends to be a lot of, I don't know. I feel like we end up with more change orders from the consultants during the project because they maybe miss something, or, billing rates change if, design is in 22 and, construction is done in 23 or a later year. Or, maybe I didn't quite get the correct scope yet because the project hasn't been designed. So you use an hour amount that's different than what is actually seen on the project. So at this point, we have the construction schedule from the contractor, and I think have a fairly good idea on what this looks like. So it shouldn't be a project where we have to come back numerous times looking to amend it.
Usually Department of Transportation, they don't give it to the same consultant. They have somebody design it and then they go through selection for the construction.
Yeah, and there's issues with that too, because then when you have questions on the job, you have to go back to the design consultant to try to figure out or interpret the plans, and you end up with delays there because there's no incentive for the design consultant to get back to the construction team in a timely manner. So that was actually one of the projects I worked on in grad school, was how they could improve that communication line. And I know there was a lot of frustration with that method too. So.
Well, if they don't answer to DOT, I think they can disqualify them for next project, and they have done it. So.
Yeah, but I mean, it's how quickly. I mean, in this case, the guy who designed the project is the one standing out there. So when a question comes up, it can be answered, pretty much immediately versus maybe 2 or 3 days. Or so I guess I personally believe there's a benefit in having the same company who designed it also oversee the work.
What's your wishes?
I'll make a motion to recommend the village board approve the proposal from Becker Hoppy for construction services for the First Street Cross Point to Shorey reconstruction project for a time and materials not to exceed price of $184,510.
Is there a second?
A second.
Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I have it. Thank you. Business 51, utility engineering proposal. It wasn't part of a package, Michael.
Yep, I was gonna say you can just skip that. I didn't have it in time, and I left it on the agenda just in case you have a question, but there's nothing to approve as part of this agenda.
Who is the engineer for that project?
We're working with, I guess, Becker Hoppy. That was the direction I got from the village board, since they already are under contract with Rothschild and Schofield for the utility portions on the project for those two communities. And we're right in the middle of those two on the Business 51 project. So to reduce the number of consulting firms, I was directed to negotiate a contract with Becker Hoppy on that.
Right, but who's doing the road?
Oh, EMCS is doing that for the DOT.
Okay. We go item 13, round 7 and 8 alternatives.
Yep. I guess as part of the Park and Rec Committee meeting in April, there was a recommendation to move forward with the shelter at Well 7 plus the bathrooms at the pump house. Then in follow-up discussions with Keith, we started thinking maybe there's a third option to perhaps have the shelter in the pump house, the shelter at the pump house, to reduce the number of structures on the site. So I guess that was one, I guess, a wrinkle from the last park meeting, is seeing if that would be a different alternative that we want to consider. We didn't have that as part of the original bid package. So in the preliminary talks with Ellis Construction, they figured it was maybe a 60 to 80,000, depending on what what modifications need to be made to the site work. The lift station pit will likely need to be moved and a few other piping, plumbing changes, but I guess that might be, it seems to be a less expensive option, and it keeps the shelter and the bathrooms right next to each other versus having two separate structures.
I think it makes sense to have a similar structure and not to have two different, right? Although that pump can sit out there just the way they're showing it here, which is not unusual, but it has been done.
Is the bathroom kind of a cut and dry issue? Or I guess listening to what goes on in these bathrooms, with them, I should say, and it's only used in the warm months. You aren't doing anything for a lot of the bathrooms at some of your nice parks. I mean, other than the portable, I guess I just don't see the expense for that. Really don't.
So, if I may, my perspective on it is that if we're gonna encourage people to use that area, we need a place for them to use. Otherwise, we got a disc golf course there. And if we're gonna encourage people to come there, we need some kind of a combination. Now, I guess the other alternative is we eliminate the disc golf course. I don't know if that's really something we wanna do either.
But you've got Sandy Beach, you've got portable.
Sure, but we have a well site here. This site was purchased for water supply from day one.
I know.
We've encouraged the dual use. I guess we're kind of dealing with this maybe somewhat incompatible use of the property, but I guess with respect to the discussion with vandalism, maybe we do then want to put separate structures for bathrooms and for the shelter so that we completely separate it and we don't have anybody near the well site or the pump house site, I should say. But we've taken bids on it, I guess, with some thought of what we really need in long term. I think if we're gonna have people using that area, using that as a park, we need a bathroom facility for them.
I think
Not a porta potty.
we cannot do the project because of this group doing vandalism. I think police should be more active and apprehend them. I think if they get a couple of them, maybe the rest of them think about it. Because, okay, we don't do this project, what about this? And we're gonna have the same problem. They're not gonna go away unless they've been punished or something with them,
Yeah, I think there's also a gender issue that comes into play somewhat, I think. For females especially, I know that I don't know many of them that want to use those portable outhouses.
If you wanna suffocate, you use the.
That does come into play.
Anybody else have a question?
I guess I would just say I would follow along with your suggestion. I like the third idea of if we can reduce the cost, so long as it doesn't present us. I don't know how much you'll buy. Is there a big concern that they would break into the pump house? They can, or is that kind of a stretch?
That's gonna be visited daily as well, and it shouldn't be any, I don't know, Sean, you think you have a different perspective on it, but.
Well, I mean, I guess, I think it comes both ways. Like he said, you don't necessarily want to attract people to that specific area, that building. But I think any building that's out there that's exposed anywhere. I mean, we've had vandalism on the back of the treatment plant. We've had vandalism on the back of the well house back here. I mean, I think that any building structure, even if they don't have access to it, can technically be that vandalized. I mean, my house has been vandalized, somebody spray painted the side of it. So, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily gonna be targeted in that way, you know? But like Keith said, I mean, there's a limited amount of parks that we don't have restrooms at. We do have some that don't have restrooms though. But, you know, and if you weren't around last year, I mean, the park rec committee and the board made the decision to remove the Yellow Banks restrooms and serve it with portable restrooms. Because the expense was, I mean, expense to put in a new restroom, well, septic, was like $170,000. We can serve it with portable restrooms for, you know, under $4,000 a year for the next, how many years due to that expense. We know it changes the use of the park though. It has less use due to the portable restrooms. Here at this site, a portable restroom that's got chemicals mixed in it and it's prone to being tipped over, which it's a wellhead site, be wellhead protection. You definitely don't want those chemicals going into the ground, and that's in that area. So like Keith said, I mean, another option would be to eliminate the disc golf course. But we all know it gets used. If you ever drive past it, it's, you know, pretty heavily used facility of the village. So as much as we don't like dealing with bathroom issues and vandalism and stuff, I mean, we probably need to just come up with a better way to hopefully take care of that issue. Help us with that issue.
If a couple of them get cut and get spanked, I think they learn their lesson. That's all you say.
And the other thing is the self-monitoring. So, I mean, we have a lot of people that love our parks and value them. And they don't want things closed down. And that's when you get people to react and report, is because, you know, I've locked the dog park and holy cow, the backlash was just crazy, you know? Probably the biggest one I've ever had. I had to close it down due to some issues with people. You know, so, I mean, people protect that. I mean, you have an issue, you lock it down. I mean, and then, you know, the disc golfers are gonna say, well, there's these people that shouldn't be hanging out there, and they'll start identifying those people because people are losing out on the opportunity to use it. You know, I mean, no different than not having paper towel or soap in the bathroom the whole summer because they keep destroying them every time we put them out. So we don't even put them in anymore.
The difference nowadays too is almost everybody carries one of these and all it takes, you don't even know you're getting your picture taken. So in what he's talking about is true, you know, if you have people that use it a lot and they see something going on, the person that's misbehaving, you know,
But, yeah.
easy to catch them, easier than years ago.
Okay, any other discussion?
I agree. I think if we're putting a new building in there and we have access to the water, I think we should be putting in restrooms.
Hey, what's your wishes?
I'll make a motion to recommend the village board approve the construction contract to include a third alternate for a park shelter included with the pump house for a budgetary cost of $60,000 to $80,000.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
I'll second.
Sorry, you already got it? Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor, but signify saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
I have it. Thank you very much.
I just want to make a note on page 38. It looks like there's a typo. It says in June 2022, there was a joint meeting.
Yeah, we caught that.
Yeah, sorry about
I
that.
shared that with Michael earlier today. Actually, one of our park committee members caught it and sent me a message yesterday about it.
Okay,
You know, surprisingly, nobody caught that when it was in the park committee packet.
item 14. Fox Street Lift Station pump purchase. Michael,
I could probably take that
Josh
one.
can take that one.
I can give Michael a rest.
okay,
So our Fox Street lift station kind of sits over by Pick and Save there. It was noted in our 2019 sanitary sewer master plan. One of the pumps had been rebuilt near that near the master plan submittal, and the other one would need to be rebuilt. So like it says in here, now it's 2022 and the pump leaks. It needs to be repaired or replaced. So we went ahead and got a couple proposals. Just so happens that each dealer that we were communicating with reached out to the same manufacturer. So that's why you'll see the pump costs are identical. And I guess due to some of the long lead times and the identical quotes, we actually went ahead and ordered the replacement pump. We were able to, there was a horizon coming where if we didn't order it in time, prices were changing frequently. So we went ahead and ordered that pump. The plan is to actually take the one that is currently leaking and send that off to get repaired. So we do have a spare if anything should happen with this new pump or the one that's was rebuilt 4 years ago.
So you got it from Energetic.
Yes, so we dealt with Energenics on this one, yep.
And Energetic is the previous contractor on these projects, I believe.
Yes,
It makes sense to go back to them.
yep. I don't know if these were original pumps to the station. I think they've been in there quite a long time,
Yes, they
so.
are original.
So just so you know, staff did run that by the administrator to whether or not to move forward, but I don't know, we had a whole lot of choice. I think that was the thing to do. We just need to, this is one of those situations we can't be putting ourselves at a risk of, downtime, so.
Well, yeah, to that point too, to rebuild the one that's leaking, it was gonna be another, 6 to 8 weeks potentially, and running that lift station on one pump, we just didn't wanna to risk it being down to just one pump on that station.
These are variable pump, isn't it?
It's a what's that?
Variable pump?
I don't think we have I don't think it's a
I think
very.
they are. I think they are. Check it out. Okay, what's your wishes?
I'll make a motion to acknowledge the replacement pump purchase from Energetics for the Smith and Loveless pump for the cost of $17,243.
Is there a second?
I'll say.
Discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
I have it, thank you. Item 15, mini excavator purchase.
So I guess as we were looking at our capital improvement plan, we initially had a mini excavator in there as a 2025 replacement. Late last fall, when Fleet Foreman Leonard was still here, he had started looking at the possibility of trading in the existing machine, and then this spring, new Fleet Foreman Schmidt took a look at kind of some of the upcoming repairs, the wear items on the existing machine, and I kind of noted that there's about just shy of $8,500 in the new parts, materials that would need to be purchased, and then that's excluding any labor that would be spent putting it together. So we did get a quote from Swiderski Equipment, which is who we initially purchased the machine from, and they're offering us I guess a fairly good trade of was it about 35,000? Yeah. So I guess it seems to make sense that the $35,000 is good value for a brand new machine when it initially cost us $60,000 about 6 years ago. Trying to find Brian's little. I forgot to put those in. But then there is we do put a little over 65,000 in the CIP from the room tax expenditures, and that's where this machine would be funded from this year. So I guess just looking for either, I guess, motion to move forward with this, or if you've got questions, let me know.
How much was our trade-off?
They're offering us 45,000 for the trade-in.
So total price is what, 70,000? No, 80,000. Plus some change.
Correct, yeah. Our net cost though is the 35,391.
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, two things. First of all, did we borrow funds to purchase the original piece?
Yes, and it's all been paid back.
Okay, that was my next question. Are we still paying for it?
No, it was a piece of equipment we initially leased. And those lease payments, the last one was paid in 2021.
Okay, and now the 66,000 that is earmarked from the CIP, from the boom tax, what was that going to be used for before you decided to purchase this equipment?
So that's where, when we talk with Jessica, and it doesn't necessarily get earmarked. It just automatically gets put in there, and then we go through it. So right now, the room tax, this would spend, the 35,000. Then there'd still be about another 25,000 that's still left to be utilized for another purchase.
You mean that's just, I don't want to say non-obligated funds?
Correct, yeah. I mean, it gets put into the CIP, whether it's to cover overages or, but we don't, I guess we've never earmarked it and said exactly what those funds are for.
Well, that's interesting.
That is just something that's typically what we use that money for, is for capital.
Well, yes, I understand that, but I thought
Borrowing
everything
capital
was,
improvements.
I thought everything was a CIP budget. It was put out there and you included the borrowing and the or the room tax funds. I didn't think it was just something kind of like a slush fund.
Well, she always includes that as a source of funds for offsetting some of the borrowing that we do for capital improvement projects. It is discretionary, certainly, but
I guess I'm not quite certain about, not that I object so much to getting a new one, but I guess I didn't realize that we had funds that were not earmarked for equipment, that it's just sitting there in case, I know sometimes if something breaks down and you need, but then again, you would think you had other equipment, something that you would put on the side. This is was earmarked for, what was it, 2026 or 2025 originally?
Correct, yeah. So one of the things this year is we initially in the 2022 budget had a $50,000 line item for I guess a brine tank attachment for our swap loader truck. I guess we're not moving forward with that. That was thought it would be necessary so we can buy bulk brine from one of our neighbors, but I think Dan found a brine maker on the auction site, and we ended up buying that for like $1,400 earlier this year. So we had no need for that $50,000 purchase. So that was the big item initially that was going to be funded out of that fund. So.
Okay.
Barb, I've got a question. Just comes to mind, would you think it's maybe unearmarked because there's no guarantee on what the dollar amount's going to be in a year, since it's a room tax?
No, it's this is from last year's collection.
Oh, I see. I just was curious.
Yeah. But you do have something that you aren't spending money on that was budgeted.
Correct, yes.
All right.
Any other discussion? What's your wishes?
I move to recommend the village board approve the purchase of the Bobcat mini excavator from Swiderski Equipment for the purchase price of $35,391.31.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed? I have it. Thank you. Item 16, surplus auction items.
So I guess similarly, we do this a couple times a year, kind of go through the equipment schedule, and then as we are in the process of cleaning out some of the garage here, in anticipation of our move, just trying to find items that we no longer use or need here at the village, but still have value that we want to, I guess, sell them. So we had a joint employee management committee meeting last Monday to just go over these items. And I guess then there's a couple pictures of the various items, just some, this one's an old stick welder that's no longer used by staff. We have a smaller, more versatile welder. The scissors lift, it doesn't work, but somebody might still want it and try to put money into it to get it to run again. The big one here is the plow cutting edges. They're styles that no longer work with the plows we have, but we know there is interest from other people that still run those types of plows to purchase those. So we think we got some pretty decent value there. And then our old asphalt roller, again, it's one that doesn't really work very well, but somebody else maybe would see some value in it or use the parts or something. So, and then just some miscellaneous lights and old stock. So.
Okay. Anything else, Michael?
Nope, just I guess looking for permission to declare the property as surplus and start putting it on the auction site.
So you're cleaning the house.
Correct, yeah.
All right, what's your wishes?
I'll move to declare the above property surplus and authorize staff to sell, dispose of these items as listed.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed? I have it. Thank you. Okay, future item, next meeting, Tuesday, May 24th, 2022 at 6 p.m. And that is Birch Street, the special assessment hearing. Is that going to be here at the Village Hall?
Yeah, it will be. There's only, I don't know, maybe 10 residents on that street that are impacted by the project. So it should be fine to have it there.
Okay. B, Monday, June 13, 2022 at 4:30 p.m. Regular meeting, that should be 4:15, then Teresa, right?
Correct.
Okay. And Monday, July 11, 2022 at 4:30 p.m. Regular meeting.
That'll be 4:15 again, I believe.
That's correct. So item 18, topic for future meeting. We have one item, we talk about it. I think ask Mr. Donner to put them on the agenda for our next meeting. I already forgot it. What was it?
You forgot it?
Yeah,
You wanted me to ask the board about the rewards for vandalism at the parks.
right. Right,
I guess we
okay.
can come back with any recommendation the board may have on that. Is there something else? Ongoing topic.
No, that's it.
Okay.
Item 19, remark from administrator, Mr. Donner.
I guess just as an FYI, based on discussions with the contractor, the moving date for going from this facility to the new facility begins the week of September 26th. So it's coming up quick. So we have a lot to get done before then.
Yes.
We are in the process, I didn't notice that REI come today, they were gonna start an environmental assessment here on this property, so have a decision yet to make on what we're gonna do with this, with the board. Those are two main things. Do want to thank Josh and Michael for all their work as we're trying to navigate our way on this whole PFAS topic. There seems to be a lot of things changing and a lot of uncertainty, and as we discussed earlier, so anyway, that's all I have.
Okay. I think just my comment is as you're moving, you gotta do your house cleaning and don't take anything over there you don't want it. That's a good time to just ditch it. Item 20, remark from staff. Yeah, Josh, Teresa? Nope. Sean? All right. Remark from committee member. Lois?
Just bear with me, this is a new experience.
Tom?
Nope, I'm good, thank you.
Just a remark from me. Last week I bust my tire going through the pothole. So please, I never thought about it. The pothole can really bust the tire. It did. I wasn't going fast. It just went down and come out from the other side. And I didn't think about it until I got home and I took a look at them. And yes, it was bad. I had this much cut at the side of a tire. And you can see the tube inside of it. So, please take care of it. I'm sure other people may have problems.
Where was that?
I'm sorry?
Where was it?
That was in Alderson.
Oh.
Okay. All right. Item 22, announcement. I don't have any announcement. I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn the meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I have it. I have it. Thank you very much. Meeting adjourned.
It was good to see you.